his three, and I want you to tell me which ones you think is most likely to least likely for you. Ian Anderson wins the fifth and final spot in the rotation. The Braves try Von Grissom out in left field. And the Braves at least make one more meaningful signing. How would you rank those three, and what do you think is the most likely to least likely?
Define meaningful.
I guess it's probably like another starter, or they address left field and make a trade where they're like, we're doing something else. We're not running it back with Ozuna and Rosario as an option. We're not just going with Kevin Pillar on a minor league deal and whoever the other guy they signed.
All three would not surprise me, truthfully. I could see all three potentially happening. I kind of like Von Grisham in left field more than I do at shortstop.
So what do you do at short, though, if that happens?
But that's the thing. And I think he's capable of playing shortstop. If he's capable of doing it, there's no other real option. At least Eddie Rosario can play competent defense sometimes, you know?
But, like, you can't put Ozuna out in the field anymore. Like, he is a full-time DH.
No. That has been an unmitigated disaster for the Atlanta Braves. Mm-hmm. But cutting him would also be a meaningful thing, you know? Like, did you say signing, or was it like a meaningful move?
Meaningful signing.
Okay, well, I guess I wouldn't count there. But none of them would surprise me. Ian Anderson, I could actually see. I would be very surprised if he doesn't make that fifth spot. I would actually go on the other side of it. Yeah.
Over Bryce?
Yeah. No, I would. No, I'd be a little surprised. Give me a little hesitation there for a second. But no.
Soroka doesn't
let's
start
not forget,
in that scenario too.
Yeah, well, I will believe Soroka when I see it. Like, that's just where I am. Would I love to see Mike Soroka? No question. I would love to see Mike Soroka. Ian Anderson also has World Series starts under his belt. He has meaningful postseason experience. He is a veteran's veteran at this point. He is young, has so much potential still. People think that we've seen the most of, like, the max of what Ian Anderson can do. I'm not convinced that we have. I think he's an elite number 5. Maybe as a solid number 3. Because we saw that at times. We saw what he could be. And I think he just got into his head a little bit too much. And he just needed to hit the reset button. We'll see how he reacts to that. Because pitching is so mentally based. There's so much that goes into that. Just your confidence. My concern when he got sent down was that it was going to rattle him a little too much. And he was never going to come back. Well, he never came back. And that concerned me a little bit. But he hit the reset button. He's been at Wake Forest all offseason, pitching and trying to hit the reset button on everything, and his confidence, his mechanics, everything else. I think he's doing the right things. I'd be very surprised just based off of the fact that he already has all that experience. He was on the opening day roster last year. He was on the World Series roster the year before that. So I'd be very surprised if he wasn't in this rotation to start the year. Will he stay there? That's a different question. Will he start there? I think he will.
I wonder, too, who's in the best interest as the starter, as that fifth guy? Like, of the 3, who do you think it helps the Braves the most if they win this job? Of those 3, Anderson, Bryce, or
Bryce Elder.
Soroka?
See, Bryce Elder, Ian Anderson, and Mike Soroka.
Yeah, who do you think benefits the Braves the most if they win the 5th spot in spring training?
Mike Soroka. Just because if Mike Soroka comes out and wins that job, that means he's finally back.
Right. And that rotation is pretty nasty.
And then all of a sudden, like, he was the best pitcher on that staff, standing next to Max Fried. He was the best pitcher on that staff. And that was a gut-wrenching loss when this team lost Mike Soroka. Him coming back, and if he's able to replicate what he was doing, that's similar. I'm not going to compare it like to like. That's like when Ronald Acuna is going to be coming back this year, and he's going to come in and make an immediate dominant impact. I think Ronald Acuna is going to have a resurgent year this year, assuming that he trusts that knee. The Atlanta Braves will be better this year if Ronald Acuna regresses to what he actually is. Ozzie Albies coming back to this lineup. I think this Braves team is going to be very good, but I'm getting kind of sidetracked here. Mike Soroka, though, I would compare his comeback to that of Ronald Acuna. Whereas he's an extremely talented player who was still not at his max capacity, and we'd seen flashes of it at times. And he's a Cy Young level pitcher. We saw that from him. He was still young. He was still really raw. What is he? Still 24 years old? 25 years old? He has the whole, like, his ceiling is way up here. So if he comes back and wins that 5 spot, I'd be very, very happy with that.
I think if Ian Anderson wins, then you're in some trouble. Like, I think they probably want him to
I
win
wouldn't say trouble.
I mean, it just means that Soroka's not right, and you probably have to. The ship has sailed there, and then you're like, okay, Bryce is probably not a guy, and we probably have to move on from him. He's in that Colby Allard spot where he's like an odd man out, where it's like if it's not now, it's not probably not going to happen for Bryce. I don't know. My gut says Bryce wins it though, of the 3.
Yeah, if Bryce Elder wins it, I will be probably the most discouraged. He's a good pitcher.
Also,
I don't think he has a long-term future with the Atlanta Braves.
Would you hate it if they brought in Mike Minor? He's still out there. A reunion with Mike, lefty.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't feel great. Charlie Morton is the only vet, really, and Charlie Morton was not himself last year.
I actually had we had a conversation with Alex Anthopoulos in November after the season obviously ended, and he had a very interesting explanation for that decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically they're just buying out his option year and extending it. That's essentially all it was. So it wasn't really a difference from anything else as like a money standpoint. So that part made me feel a little bit better. Part 2 was, if you look at his best seasons, it's when he has a full off season to prepare. So like he goes through the full situation where he rests, he gears up, he gets going, and then he hits full go by the time opening day comes around. He hasn't been able to do that. The 2 years that he struggled, 2020, obviously you have COVID and everything else, and they shut everything down. And then last year, after he's coming off of the broken leg, when he is not having to deal with all of those issues and those constraints, dude is an elite number 2. He's a top-end pitcher. And he still has the swing and miss capabilities. We saw that in the second half of the season once he was actually able to get ramped up and fully into pitching mode. He still has swing and miss. And I think that's really all you need from him on a game-to-game basis. He lacked the consistency that I really wanted to see, and that's why I'm a little nervous on the deal. But it did confirm a few things to me that, well, Alex Anthopoulos knows what he's doing here, and he knows why he made that decision. And I'm going to defer to Alex Anthopoulos pretty universally. It's a lot of money, and I would have liked to have seen some of that money go elsewhere, like left field or maybe shortstop. But at the end of the day, it's like if you have a guy who can come in and be a steady everyday pitcher every 5 days, I think that's a very valuable thing to have. A guy who can go 6 innings, maybe 7. That's very important for this team.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if they're done, and if it does go awry, they just wait it out and they see how this just goes in spring training, and then they'll address it depending on how everybody looks. So I think that's something to monitor at the very least. Last thing on the Hawks. So the Hawks have a winning streak. They
healthy Hawks, man. I told you they got a run in them.
The healthy Hawks, and look, they it's so interesting because Jalen Johnson obviously not in the rotation right now, and watching. Oh my goodness, who were the Mavs earlier this week, and poor DeAndre Hunter, just no answer for Luka Doncic. Like Luka was doing some just ridiculous stuff to DeAndre Hunter in the first quarter of that game, where I think Luka had like 16 or something, but like
19.
I was just and I was just only watching DeAndre on Luka, and I'm like, DeAndre's not a small dude, and Luka just makes him look like a cornerback on a left tackle. Like it's just not really fair what Luka was doing to him.
That's a little unfair.
Go back and look at it. DeAndre looks just like a tall toothpick next to Luka, and it's just he has no chance keeping up with him. And then Luka doesn't score, I think, in the second quarter, and they figured some stuff out. But
who did they put on him in the second quarter?
Was
that when they put Bogey?
No, it was Capella. I think it was I think Capella was on Luka a bunch in the second quarter.
They switched something up. It's like I was like,
I swear Capella was on him a lot.
Brad Rowland was live tweeting, and like they changed up some some of the defensive formations and they would push up to try and stop when they were pushing into the paint. They'd have John Collins push.